the Simca Vedette. A name that might not immediately ring bells, but for those in the know, it's a hidden gem in the history of post-war European automobiles. It's a car that dared to be different, a French automobile with an undeniable American spirit. Let's take a journey back in time to explore the intriguing story behind the Simca Vedette, a car that was both bold and unconventional. Our story begins in the late 1940s and early 1950s, a time when the world was slowly rebuilding itself from the devastation of World War II. In France, the automotive industry was alive with innovation and ambition. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, America's car culture was booming, with long sweeping lines, chrome accents, and powerful V8 engines becoming hallmarks of the era. Enter Simca, a French automaker established in 1934 and originally focused on producing small, economical cars. Simca had carved out a reputation for building reliable, efficient vehicles well-suited to the European market. But the Vedette was something entirely different. To understand the Vedette, we have to take a detour into its origins, which involve another car manufacturer, Ford. Yes, Ford. The Vedette wasn't originally a Simca creation. It was born out of Ford's French division, Ford SAF, Société Anonyme Française. In 1948, Ford SAF began working on a new sedan that would capture the essence of American styling and engineering, but scaled down for the European market. The result was the Ford Vedette, which debuted in 1948. It was a sleek, modern car, notable for its smooth, aerodynamic bodywork, and perhaps most interestingly, its small displacement V8 engine, something practically unheard of in Europe at the time. The Vedette was powered by a 2.2-liter flathead V8, producing around 66 horsepower. While modest by American standards, this engine gave the Vedette a unique character in Europe. The throaty burble of its V8 engine was unlike anything else on French roads, where four-cylinder engines dominated. But the Vedette's story took an unexpected turn in 1954. Ford decided to exit the French market and sell its operations, including the factory in Poissy, to Simca. It was a move that would transform the Vedette's future. Simca took over production of the car, rebadging it as the Simca Vedette and giving it a new lease on life. Simca saw the Vedette as an opportunity to expand its offerings and appeal to a more upscale audience. The car was refreshed with subtle design updates, but its fundamental character, a mix of American flair and French practicality, remained intact. This blend of influences became the Vedette's calling card, setting it apart from its competitors. One of the most striking features of the Simca Vedette was its styling. It was heavily influenced by American cars of the time, with a streamlined profile, a prominent grille, and generous chrome detailing. It looked like a car that had been plucked straight out of 1950s Detroit, yet it was perfectly at home navigating the narrow streets of Paris. The interior of the Vedette was equally impressive. It offered a surprising level of comfort and luxury for a car of its class. Plush upholstery, a spacious cabin, and a dashboard that exuded mid-century charm made it a standout choice for buyers seeking something a little more refined. Simca didn't stop at just one version of the Vedette. Over the years, the car evolved and diversified. By the late 1950s, the Vedette lineup included several variants, each with its own personality. There was the base model, the Trianon, which offered straightforward, no-nonsense elegance. Then came the Versailles, a slightly more upscale version with additional chrome accents and a touch more flair. And for those who wanted the ultimate in luxury, there was the Régence, which featured even finer trim and a more opulent interior. But perhaps the most eye-catching member of the Vedette family was the Beaulieu, and later, the Présidence. These models were the epitome of 1950s sophistication, often featuring two-tone paint schemes, white wall tires, and optional equipment like a radio or a sunroof. The Présidence even came with a partitioned rear cabin for chauffeur-driven customers, a touch of grandeur usually reserved for much more expensive cars. Under the hood, the Vedette continued to be powered by its signature V8 engine, which had become a defining feature of the car. Simca made improvements to the engine over time, boosting its power output and refining its performance. While it was never a sports car, the Vedette offered smooth, relaxed cruising, and a sense of effortless power that appealed to its buyers. The Vedette's engineering was ahead of its time in some respects. It featured independent front suspension and a monocoque chassis, which contributed to its comfortable ride and solid handling. These innovations made the Vedette a joy to drive, whether you were gliding along a country road or weaving through city traffic. Despite its many strengths, the Simca Vedette was not without its challenges. For one, it occupied a niche market segment. Its mix of American-inspired styling and European sensibilities appealed to a select group of buyers, but wasn't universally loved. Some found its American influences a bit too bold, while others questioned whether a V8 engine was practical in a post-war Europe still recovering from fuel shortages. Nevertheless, the Vedette found its audience. It became a favorite among French professionals, government officials, and anyone who wanted a car that stood out from the crowd. Its charm even extended beyond France, with the car finding buyers in other European countries, as well as South America and Africa. By the early 1960s, however, the automotive landscape was changing. Smaller, more economical cars were becoming increasingly popular, and the demand for larger, more luxurious sedans began to wane. Simca shifted its focus to newer models, and in 1961, production of the Vedette came to an end. But the story of the Simca Vedette doesn't end there. Today, the car is a cherished classic, prized by collectors and enthusiasts who appreciate its unique blend of style, innovation, and history. Restored examples of the Vedette can often be found at classic car shows, where they continue to turn heads and spark conversations. The Simca Vedette represents a fascinating chapter in automotive history, a car that bridged two worlds and defied convention. It was bold, ambitious, and unapologetically different. And in the process, it carved out a legacy that endures to this day. So the next time you hear the deep rumble of a small V8 engine or catch sight of those unmistakable 1950s lines, take a moment to appreciate the Simca Vedette, a car that dared to dream big and brought a touch of American swagger to the streets of Europe.